Hey everyone, this is Adam Ellenboss from Nightlight Astrology. Today we are going to take a look at the second major aspect of this week, which is Mars in Libra squaring Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. We're going to talk about the fact that Jupiter is in the superior square, exalted, while Mars is in the inferior position and debilitated. That's going to flavor the way that we interpret this combination of symbols. So we'll cover that. And then we're going to look at this from the standpoint of 5 things to watch for, make it a little horoscopic, as I was explaining yesterday. And we'll take a look at the 5 things to watch for within those 4 major areas of life. I'm going to give you a list of 5 things to watch for with respect to the interior or psychological experience, relationship experiences, work, public kinds of experiences, or inner private family dynamics, all of which really cover the 4 angular houses in a birth chart. And so in that way, we can make a list of 5 things to watch for that also, almost touches on the theme of a horoscope or kind of feels similar to one. So, and this is all coming from my troubled relationship with horoscopes. So, anyway, on that note, before we get into it, please remember to like and subscribe. It is my goal to get to 100,000 subscribers on the channel by next summer. It really helps if you watch regularly. You just click the subscribe button, helps us grow. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com, not to be confused with a dance club.
Yo, what's up, Boxing Glove One?
Nightlight
How are you, brother?
Astrology. There's at least one person a week that calls us Nightlife, which is kind of fun. Anyway, go over to the events page, click on Immersive Retreat. Our promotion for the day is the Oracle Within training program, which we're hosting in Mexico next June. This retreat is meant to deepen your connection to the intuitive, oracular, and divinatory aspect of astrology. Astrology is craft, it's theory, there's a logos, and that's mainly what we teach in all of our programs. But this is the first program that I've ever developed that is specifically devoted to talking about astrology as oracular and divinatory, where your living relationship with the oracle and acting as something of a medium for that voice is an important part of the craft that I don't think we spend enough time talking about. So that's why I'm leading this retreat. I'm very excited about it. There is a video at the end of today's content that will tell you more about the retreat. We are over halfway full now, and the early bird rate ends at the beginning of October. So you still have a little bit of time to join, but we are filling up quickly. So be sure to check that out, and I hope to see some of you there. Also, go to events and click on live talks. You'll see that my live talks for the autumn, September, October, November, December are all posted. This month, I'm starting a new webinar series that will come throughout the months ahead on the pairing of planets. So learning planetary combinations is hugely important for the development of your craft as an astrologer, or it really helps understanding planetary pairings in your own birth chart. So we're going to be looking at Mercury's pairings to kick off this new little mini series that I'm doing through my monthly webinars. We're going to look at Mercury paired with every other planet and how we understand that both philosophically. Attention to the real-time clock, where we will take a look at this Mars-Jupiter dynamic and start interpreting it. So here we are today, Thursday, September 4th. And Mars in Libra is applying to a square with Jupiter in Cancer. Now, to be fair, this dynamic has been forming since, you give it about 3 degrees, since last weekend. So anything we're talking about today and tomorrow on the channel, both of which today and tomorrow will cover this Mars-Jupiter dynamic, is something that you might have been experiencing all the way from last weekend, basically. Which would be around the 30th, 31st of August. Bring it forward, and between today and tomorrow morning, Thursday, September 4th and 5th, the square is perfecting. But then let's give it 3 degrees of separation again, and we're not seeing it fully separated until the middle of next week. And it's important to mention that for some people, a lot of people, things tend to really spark around the perfection moment. So today, tomorrow. But it is not uncommon for things leading up to or just after. And it's funny how many people in the comment section, when I do a video, will say, oh gosh, I wish I would have known this 4 days ago. You were within the engagement range, most likely, or looking back, they'll go, oh wow, this just hit 4 or 5 days later. It's like a full moon in that respect, the morning of a full moon, the night of a full moon, the day after a full moon, it's full moony. So, transits work like that as well. So we try to get into the sort of nexus of the symbolism from the standpoint of the linear time passages that happen. But yeah, keep in mind that this may continue on, carry over into the middle of next week. Um, it's also important, let me actually bring the chart back up to note a few of the dignity conditions. So, for example, the faster moving planet is the one we say is applying to create the aspect. But within the aspect dynamic, there is typically a planet with squares, sextiles, and trines. There is one planet that will have the upper hand through the what is called the inferior superior aspect dynamic. So, in this case, if we think about you can start with either planet and imagine you're the planet looking into the center of the wheel like a person staring into the center. Um, if the aspect is coming off from the planet's right hand side, you can imagine you're facing in and you're Jupiter. The aspect to Mars is to your right. So with the sextile to Virgo, the square to Libra, or the trine to Scorpio on the right hand side of Jupiter, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, all of those for any planet in Cancer making an aspect to any of those planets in any of those signs would put the planet in Cancer in the superior position. And there are some really interesting philosophical reasons for all of this that we break down in my classes. We can't get into that so much today, but suffice to say, when Jupiter's in the superior position within the Jupiter Mars dynamic, Jupiter in Cancer is going to be more strongly influencing the dynamic. It's sort of like if you had two people and they were hanging out, and some relationships there's an even flow. In other relationships, one person might be a little brighter or louder within the friendship, and the other one's a bit more of a receptive receiver type. Doesn't mean that they don't play a role, but they may not be as bright and loud and sparky as the other person, right? So you can kind of think of it that way. It's a fun image. And so, in this dynamic, the exalted Jupiter in Cancer meeting with Mars has all of the flavor of a normal Mars Jupiter exchange, except for Jupiter exalted in Cancer is more heavily influencing the exchange than Mars in Libra is. This is also significant because Mars is debilitated in Libra while Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, which would likely mean that any of the harsher dynamics in a Jupiter Mars combination would be mitigated somewhat by the presence of the exalted Jupiter in this case. You're going to feel that in terms of how the delineations are shaped. So, in every delineation I'm about to provide you with, I kept in mind the superior position of Jupiter in Cancer. So, if I explained that nuance within every delineation I gave, we'd be here forever. Because the way that those delineations are formed becomes rather intuitive after a while for you as an astrologer. But I encourage you, if you like those kinds of subtle dynamics, listen carefully to the delineations. And what you should hear is a recurrence of the kind of maybe more prominent voicing of Jupiter in Cancer within them. This is something again that I teach in my programs how to do this, but it's a subtle little point of craft that often influences my lists, but you don't always even know it. So anyway, all right, so we've got 5 things to watch for given this dynamic. By the way, tomorrow what we're going to do is we're going to look at this from a deeper philosophical and spiritual and psychological perspective. Today is meant to be more mundane. Here's the ways that this planetary pairing may show up in your life in these very common areas of life. Tomorrow we'll get a little deeper and more reflective, which I think both are, really healthy. So all right, anyway, 5 things to watch for in 4 spheres of life that correspond to the 4 angular houses of a birth chart. Internal psychological dynamics. How do we process a Jupiter Mars square in these signs, given these dignity exchanges we've just talked about, when it comes to just how it might show up internally or psychologically? The second place we'll look at will be love and relationships. How does this show up in intimate, interpersonal dynamics, maybe marriage, lovers, close friends, anything that is a dynamic interpersonal connection. Number 3 would be career, work, or the public sphere, and number 4 would be family dynamics, or maybe the more private internal place of our chart there. You can think of these as first, seventh, 10th, and fourth house kinds of things. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start with the internal psychological sphere. When Mars and Jupiter get together, maybe one note for everyone is that while Jupiter, broadly speaking, has a correlation with wisdom and knowledge and faith, for example, all of the institutions that are supposed to ideally convey virtue, order, meaning, and coherence to human life, institutions of religion, ideally, institutions of education, ideally, governments, ideally, are all supposed to give us order, meaning, coherence, justice, beauty, fairness, equity, and so forth. They fall short all of the time. But we're talking about archetypes, and archetypes in the living world are always reflections of an ideal space, but there's something about this world that resists, you know, resists perfection. It resists, we don't become perfect triangles, in this world, and probably for good reason, but we have this intricate dance with ideals, and Jupiter is about the way in which the universe itself is meaningful, coherent, purposeful. There's a design, there's an intelligence, and we can study and learn that. The uh, pursuit of knowledge through philosophy, ethics, education, religion, the creation of coherence through ideal forms of governance. These are all Jupiterian. When we talk about Mars, we're talking about the reality of conflict. We're talking about the reality of individual wills that may battle or clash. We're talking about the reality of competition, the reality of things like dominance or winning while someone loses, cutting things and separating them as opposed to unifying them. All of these serve a very interesting role in the cycling play of life and death, light and dark, um, which truly goes beyond good and evil morally, although there's a way in which Mars will frequently show up in relation to things like violence and war and conflict. And it's hard to sort of not call the planet malefic from that standpoint, which is why for thousands of years we honor and acknowledge that designation, because Mars can be very Marsy. But when these two planets come together, conflicts that are related to things like justice, conflicts that are related to the law, conflicts that are related to, in the sign of Cancer, for example, families, civil. I jokingly called this video "A Day in Cosmic Family Court." Divorce lawyers, divorce attorneys, family conflicts, tribal conflicts, civil war, clans, rival clans. These are the kinds of things that can come up when Jupiter in the sign of Cancer gets into a square with Mars in Libra. Questions about fairness and justice, emotional attachment versus impartiality, fairness that requires severing partial subjective biases. These are all the kinds of things that can come up. Jupiter and Mars can also be very gallant and brave and can fight on behalf of things that are ennobling or that carry a sense of righteous goodness, virtue, etc. So you'll often see the Jupiter Mars pairing in the charts of people who are very successful athletes or who are very inspiring coaches, or Jupiter Mars can also come together in moments of great courage or bravery or the willingness to take a risk, to be a pioneer, to blaze a trail. And to do so with a sense of conviction, a meaning, a sense of mission or purpose behind it. These are all Mars-Jupiter dynamics. So just kind of addressing Mars-Jupiter broadly, now let's take a look at how this dynamic may play out on the internal and psychological sphere. So I should have done that first, but anyway, here we are. So internally, the experience of a moral conflict would be my first thing to watch for. You want to be generous, you want to be forgiving, you want to be loving and accepting, and the emotional sense of graciousness and big-heartedness may come into some conflict with competition, judgments, resentments, and so I would wonder about an inner sense of what is the right thing to do here, what is the fair or just thing, and questions about what you ought to be feeling versus what you do feel. Is this partial? Is it impartial? Should it be partial or impartial? explorations like that as an inner tension. So more, let's call it moral conflict within. The second one would be self discipline versus indulgence. The reason for this is that Jupiter in Cancer in that superior square can be very emotionally indulgent. Not that it's not to say that Jupiter in Cancer is emotionally indulgent. It can be. And so when there is an impulse toward indulging your emotions, indulging your feelings, indulging your wants and desires, and losing some sense of a more rational, discerning, fair mindedness or impartiality, like a voice in you that says, let's be discriminating, let's be very discerning, and let's not get overrun by big emotional impulses. So that could be a way that you experience the conflict. And it wouldn't be surprising to feel like the Jupiter in Cancer part is very overwhelming or very, very strong in terms of the inner conflict of what I desire, what I want, how rational and detached should I be about it. The other one would be the, let's call it the courage to protect. And the courage to protect could come across as the strong, almost maternal instinct of protecting something vulnerable, the guardian archetype, the defender of loved ones or family or home or things that are like children or people who are weak or vulnerable or a population of people who is marginalized or hurting, and this courage to want to advocate for their rights or their safety or uh, their equality. Uh, so that just that sense of almost a kind of spirit of activism that might be rising up within you. I would be careful about utilizing, like when you have strong subjective feelings and you can find a way of making them appear righteous or morally correct. You can convince yourself that something that's perhaps very personal to you is, what do I want to say here? You can, Jupiter in Cancer inflecting itself on Mars in Libra can take deeply subjective personal biases and have you convincing yourself that they're rational, good, true, and that they're not just reflective of your personal subjective orientation, but that they're somehow right for everyone, right? So it can be very tricky. Um, it would be like a situation where if you felt like your kid was in a really, really vulnerable position, and that's a legitimate thing to feel, but then you could convince yourself that there was some huge systemic problem that you could go and try to champion without recognizing that what you were championing, even if it was a good thing, was so deeply rooted in a personal feeling of vulnerability about your own kid. And sometimes that it's very important that the two things see each other clearly so you can advocate while also being honest about where you're coming from, because otherwise sometimes like a passive aggression will come through. So inflated righteousness could be a thing to watch for internally. And then I would also say that this is a transit that can teach us how to be more emotionally discerning, um, and wise. So we can turn powerful emotions into a wiser, more careful intelligence. So let's call it an opportunity for greater emotional intelligence. So, yeah. So those are my five. Um, Now you'll notice that in these five, I'm not delineating them so sharply um, with banners. The reason for that is that within this particular format that I'm using, first of all, I don't want to make 20 banners, but second of all, I like being able to kind of weave them together a little bit more seamlessly and just just talk about them rather than delineating in such a linear way 20 separate times. So there, I do have 5 points written down, but you'll notice I'm just sort of flowing through them a little bit more. So it's a little less linear than it was in the past, but that I personally prefer it this way for this format. And you'll see that in other talks, the 5 things to watch for are still there and more linear. So I'm trying to include both, just as a side note, since I've been talking about craft this week. All right, let's get into love and relationships. So the theme of protection and care, and a concern for protection and care within relationships comes to my mind right away. It is possible that some of the care and protection motif within relationships could subtly be about controlling people under the guise of care. Like, I think about a mom who may be very controlling but says that everything she's doing is for the safety of her kids. And so it's like partially true but partially a mask for control in like the it's caring, but it's a mask and it's really about control. That's what I'm trying to say. So the second one to me would be about moral debates within relationships. What is right or what is wrong for the relationship, or different people having different, almost like ideological, moral, or ethical outlooks on a situation, and having to work through that together, or it being a source of real tension. Number 3 would be in relationships, sometimes we seek our meaning or value by being someone's counselor, therapist, helper, protector, advocate. So that theme could ramp up right now. And I'm not saying that we don't heal, advise, protect. We grow each other up, we heal each other. There's all sorts of things that we do that are about caring, and I'm actually an advocate for those kinds of things. In relationships, I don't think we're all meant to be whole before we love. We're meant to help each other become whole. We're meant to heal each other. However, it is possible that if we are constantly in relationships where we act as someone's therapist, helper, aid, guide, where maybe we pay the bills more, or there's some inequality and we're deriving too much value from being the helper, the healer, the nurse, we might have to look at that right now. That's another one. Another number 4 on my list is questions similar, right? Which has to do with the question of give and take in relationships, almost like contractually. It's the last one I was thinking about more in terms of healing and helping dynamics in relationships, where we help, we heal, we advise, we counsel, we hold space for, and then maybe we're deriving too much of our self-worth from that. So it brings up questions of reciprocity. But this one is more explicitly to me about reciprocity, where there's also when you're getting into a relationship and one person makes a lot of money and the other partner maybe doesn't make as much, and you're living together and you're figuring out how to do the bills, that's a tricky situation. Lots of people handle that differently. The person with more money might say, look, it's 50-50 regardless. Or the person with more money might say, look, I make a lot more money. Let me just pay a little bit more for rent. So I could see there being questions in relationships about what this unique bond looks like in terms of what each person should be sharing and providing. What does real reciprocity look like in this unique situation? And then finally, when relationship drama is framed as an opportunity for growth, rather than one person has to be right, one person is wrong, and the relationship ends unless we agree, or something like that. The reason I say this is because This is a Jupiter in Cancer that's exalted, squaring Mars in a Venus ruled sign of Libra that is really interested in harmony and fairness. So one of the like surprising benefits of this transit within loving relationships, any interpersonal dynamic, would be the ability that we have to see conflict as something that can grow us, that can foster growth and love. Jupiter in Cancer, in other words, inflecting itself on Mars and Libra, says actually this conflict is an opportunity for the fertile development of love and bondedness and attraction and connection. Um, Relationships may actually thrive when conflict can be reframed as a growth opportunity. So consider that as well. All right. So anyway, those are 5 things to watch for in love and relationships. Let's move to career or work. Career in the workplace, number 1 to me would be defense of principles behind the work, behind how something's being done. Another one would be forms of moral leadership or themes of morality influencing the development of projects or the workplace environment itself. The other one would be managing conflicts within the workspace among teams or colleagues, and how do we resolve tensions or conflicts in the best possible manner. Number 4 would be anything to do with legal conflicts related to the workplace. Unfortunately, this is a combination that can lead to like legal actions. And so how are we handling the potential for legal debates about the law and things like that? The other thing I could see here closely related would be a sense of moral duty or obligation, a sense of fairness or principles informing the actions of a company or workplace, a concern for the public good or something like that, or public safety, informing how things are being done. But also, so public protection and also protection of the company and legal actions and conflicts around the company. And then anything that has to do with conflicts between companies or conflicts, competition and conflict in the workplace or from one company to another, informing how decisions are being made. And I would be on guard against passive aggressive ways of handling perceived competition or conflict. So, all right, finally, family dynamics, private home family sector of life. First and foremost, the video is named after it, A Day in Cosmic Family Court. Anything around justice, law, legal actions or pursuits, the settling or resolution of conflict within the family, maybe through legal matters or advisors or counselors or family mediators or family therapists. So just conflict around the family, civil strife, and the healing or resolution of conflicts and tensions around home and family. So similar to, let's call it family justice, would be protectors of home and family. So themes around advocacy or guardianship, again, but with respect to things like home, family. This could be something as simple as having a home alarm system installed. It could also have something to do with, maybe you get a guardian dog breed, or you are, you go volunteer at a women's shelter where women coming out of domestic abuse are receiving help. So you can see those themes: protector of home and family, family justice. I could see there being passive aggression in the home. Like, again, how do you handle differences of view when it comes to things that are ethical or moral or have to do with fairness? And there might be just really different views among people who really do love and care about each other, that have to be explored or examined. So let's call it not so much, I'm thinking on one level of like legal issues around home or family, like divorce attorneys or real estate attorneys, Another one I'm thinking about is more about just clashes of value or belief or view, especially on things that are moral or ethical within the family, and having to figure out how to resolve those tensions. I could see clashes in terms of uh, generational values. What defines a good, healthy home and family? What are the values that my parents or my grandparents have versus my own? So, where Jupiter and Cancer inflects itself onto Mars and Libra, it's like, well, I ought not display any sense of being different or having a different opinion or perspective because I don't want to upset my parents or my grandparents. But actually, I have a different perspective, or I have a different value that clashes with the tradition, and I'm worried that I'll upset the bonds of my family by making it known. For example, sometimes people within religious families will be a bit of a black sheep and say something like, "Look, I support people who don't identify as a Christian, or I support people who don't identify as straight." And that may fly in the face of some moral or spiritual religious view in the family. This is the kind of transit that could bring up almost like generational clashes of value or belief, um, with the sense of like, "Ugh, I don't want to upset or disturb the family because there's something really maybe beautiful or nice about it." Jupiter and Cancer, right? Inflecting itself upon Mars and Libra. Mars and Libra might feel like it has to sort of bow to, like, I don't want to offend my sweet grandmother, but she is closed-minded about something, or do you know what I mean? Finally, I would look at um, opportunities for healing. Uh, the home becomes a site of growth, wisdom, and moral grounding if we allow it to be that in whatever way it needs to be right now. So there we have it. All right. So tomorrow, we're going to take a look at this square again, but from a deeper philosophical perspective. We're going to meditate on this and try to unpack some of the deeper implications for our life. Like, one question I like to ask myself as a creative making this content is, okay, so here's this transit that comes through, and we have all these ways it can appear that we've just unpacked, but why? Why why would this pattern be a part of what a soul, a spirit soul, a being encounters at all? And I think asking that deeper question is in line with the deeper philosophical core of our tradition. And if we don't do that, we're really missing something, because then all we're doing is essentially just digging for information about what's going to happen. So engaging with the why behind it is an important part of astrological um, reflection. So we'll do that tomorrow after I sign off here. There's an informational video about that retreat. I hope that you will check it out. And again, the early bird rate is till early October. I think the first week of October, the early bird rate ends. So you still have several weeks to sign up for the retreat. We are about over halfway full now. So just make sure that you think about that soon. And yeah, I can't wait to hang out with some of you in community in Mexico.
All right, you guys, happy Thursday. I am so sorry that I've been gone. I promise I'm going to explain everything to you in this episode. We're going to make this episode extra long because I feel like we have to do that. Foremost, I just want to give a special shout out to white people today because what you guys did with Cracker Barrel, it was honestly inspiring. So we're going to briefly discuss what happened there. Before we do, I have to tell you, I am obsessed with the Stanford experiment right now. I know we left you guys in a bit of a cliffhanger, but now things have grown increasingly more interesting. So let's jump right back into this. Welcome back to Candace. You know what? It's actually comedian Tim Dillon that's asking the important questions right now. So let's roll a clip.
Does the president of France's wife have a or not?
That's the question. And do you know what I was thinking while I had some time? I was thinking, isn't it interesting that Jean-Michel Trogneux didn't sue me? Like, wouldn't that actually make more legal sense? Because in America, it's virtually impossible to sue a public figure because of the actual malice standard. Like, you have to prove, because I think that public figures, it's a part of the public interest. People are allowed to cover them and ask questions. And you have to meet what's known as the actual malice standard, which I think I've explained in the past, but essentially that this person knew the truth 100% and acted in reckless regard of it just because they didn't like the individual. They just had malice against them. But if Jean-Michel Trogneux had sued me, that standard would have been removed. Jean-Michel Trogneux could have said, excuse me, this person is saying that I transitioned into my sister and that's not appropriate. And then they would perhaps have a very legitimate claim if they could prove that I knew the truth. But they're not doing that. Jean-Michel Trogneux is not suing me. They're not interested actually in exploring that at all. I wonder why that is. Or maybe Jean-Michel Trogneux is suing me under a new name, Brigitte Macron. And look, I also want to say that there's a tiny piece of me that feels bad for Emmanuel Macron because I was speaking with somebody and they were asking, why do you think that this sitting president of France actually filed this lawsuit in America? It's completely crazy. And then suddenly it dawned on me, OMG, I think that Brigitte and Emmanuel thought that if they filed this lawsuit, that I would just be a normal person and shut up because most people would just be, oh, I'm being sued. Let me just shut up for a little bit. But no, that's not how things work in America. They don't understand the cultural differences between America and France. You can't just file a lawsuit to make an American shut up, right? Noisy is actually our brand. Like, we take pride in not minding our own business. That's who we are. Like, we don't know our forks from our knives. We're not going away. And we are going to figure out what happened to Jean-Michel Trogneux. So guess what I've done? I have actually started the process of emailing them even more questions this week. More questions because I want to get to the bottom of this for the entire world. And we recently left you guys on a cliffhanger, okay? And it's getting interesting. Something actually has me completely seized. I am obsessed. I'm locked in like nothing else matters. I have my team working on this 24/7. So many of you guys accurately pointed out, that when we introduced to you guys the individual that kind of looks like Jean-Michel Trogneux, that was a part of the Stanford prison experiment. It showed up in a documentary, that side image, like, who is this person? And many of you guys emailed us and said, okay, but Candace, look further into those documents, and prisoner number 2093 that participated in this experiment looks a lot like our missing boy, right? Like, that looks like Jean-Michel Trogneux. And I have to say, like, initially I put it at a low percentage, but I'm exploring every single lead. I said, okay, I'll just do a little light research into this topic. And there's a couple of things that I want you to remember as I unpack to you what happened next. Okay, first and foremost, Jean-Michel Trogneux goes missing for like a decade, more than a decade. And we know for a fact a couple of things that he was involved in throughout those missing years, okay? Things that I want you to remember. One, Brigitte, the current first lady, has already said that she was in the United States and quote unquote, experienced the moon landing. Okay. I was there when Armstrong walked on the moon. Okay, that's NASA. Remember that. That's one. Two, we know that Jean-Michel Trogneux was in engineering school. That's where the photo comes from. That was very difficult for Xavier Poussard to get his hands on. Okay, so there's an engineering angle, there's a NASA angle. And lastly, of course, we know that Jean-Michel Trogneux was in the military. Military, moon landing, and NASA, and engineering. Lean in now, you guys, because it's going to get interesting. So we told you about that random message, obviously, that we got. Hey, there's a Shay MT lookalike in the documentary. That was about a simulated prison experiment. It happened in 1971 at Stanford University campus, okay? That was that side photo again. And there were a couple of things that immediately caught my attention. Foremost, why is Hulu making a documentary about an experiment that happened back in 1971? Doesn't that seem sort of random? To me, like that's a little bit random. So I decided to look into that initially. And the story goes that this Stanford prison experiment got back into the news because a man named Thibault Le Texier, he is French, interesting, suddenly became overcome with interest in this prison experiment that happened in 1971. Le Texier is not a psychologist. He does not have a background in psychology. In fact, he had never published a book before he published this book, which for whatever reason got very popular. He was in business management. That was his background. He had published and authored papers pertaining to business management. But suddenly this guy gets a book deal and he publishes a book to debunk this obscure, I would say if you're French, this is an obscure experiment that happened in 1971. And I think now it's important for me to explain to you what the definition is of a limited hangout, okay? This expression, a limited hangout. Essentially, a limited hangout happens when the government wants to prevent citizens from looking into a specific incident or a specific case. They want citizens to literally stop asking questions. So what they do is they try to manufacture a tell-all, right? Like, oh, I'm actually going to tell you things that you've never known before. We're going to tell you everything. And the idea here is that the public will think that some random independent person has stepped into the public eye and is telling them everything that they're not supposed to know. So they're kind of being invited into the secret. And oh my gosh, we're hearing all of this stuff. It's so detailed. I guess me, a person that's a member of the public, I no longer have to look into that matter myself because thankfully we have this guy to do it for us. That's exactly what happened with the Charles Manson murders. Remember, the prosecutor in that case, Vincent Bugliosi, he wrote the official book, Helter Skelter, and it was a best-selling book at that time. Everyone believed that he was giving them a detailed, never-before-seen account of the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, the how, and therefore nobody else had to look. This guy knew everything, except he lied, right, about mostly everything. And it took author and journalist Tom O'Neill writing that book that I rave about, Chaos, about the CIA and the secret history of the 60s. It is such a point. It is really a potent book. Everyone should read it. And then we learned through his book that it was just one big CIA performance, essentially. We still don't really have answers of what happened on that night. And I don't know that we're ever going to get those answers. But we do know that it was one big CIA performance. They were involved at every level of what happened on that night. And their goal was to socially engineer American society. So I am keenly aware of limited hangouts. I never accept someone saying that they're doing an official debunking on something. I need to debunk it myself personally. So anyways, this French guy, Thibault Le Texier, the story goes, despite having no background in psychology and only having ever written about business management in the past, he says that he watched a TED Talk in 2013 that Philip Zimbardo, who was the Stanford psychologist that enacted this experiment, he said he watched that TED Talk and he just became obsessed with the experiment. And he wanted to at first make a short film about it, but for years that didn't really work. Anyways, here is a clip of him explaining on that recent Hulu documentary how he got involved in this case. Take a listen.
In the 50 years since the experiment, no one had done as extensive research as you?
Yes, it started as a side project. I used to do found footage films, and I discovered the Stanford Prison Experiment. I'd heard about it, but never really digged into it. I decided to fund a trip to Stanford to go through the archive because I wanted to build a film from the archive.
Okay. He says that he spent a week at Stanford crawling through everything. Again, this is a grand debunking. He says, like, this actually was not that objective of an experiment, and Philip Zimbardo lied. So that already feels like, oh, he's telling us the truth, right? Which he is telling us the truth. Philip Zimbardo did tell a lot of lies about how that experiment came together. And I downloaded Letexier's book, and he reiterates, like, he tried to make a film, it didn't work out. And then suddenly he pivoted and said, you know what? I'm just going to make this into a book. And voila, I guess somebody just gave him a book deal. Except I know that that's not how book deals work. You can't just be a person that's in business management and go to a place and say, hey, look, I have this idea. I'm going to write this book. I've been looking into this case in the background. Like, just give me a book publishing deal. That's just not how things work. You have to be somebody to get those deals. Maybe Jordan Peterson saying, oh, this experiment is really important. I'd like to sell a book. And they say yes, because a publisher's goal is to make money, right? They want to make money. Nobody knows who you are. Why are we discussing this in France? Like the Stanford experiment from 50 years ago, I'm not sold on this narrative. We'll never know, obviously. Anyway, Letexier then does publish this book. He publishes this official debunking. The book is entitled Investigating the Stanford Prison Experiment, History of a Lie. And what's interesting is that he publishes this book in March of 2018. That's exactly the time that Emmanuel Macron is inaugurated into the Élysée Palace alongside Brigitte Macron. I kid you not. So I'm like, okay, 1 point, that's interesting. Like I told you, as I was going through this book that I had downloaded, my interest was further piqued by his acknowledgments page. Traditionally, you are supposed to acknowledge people in your book who helped you to put the book together, and he certainly does that. He thanks the prisoners who contributed to his investigation. He thanks the people that published his book. He thanks some of the documentary filmmakers, but he also thanks someone that caught my eye that has his last name, Letexier. It's a woman named Ramonde Letexier. And I obviously can't mind my own business, so I was like, who's that? Is that your mama? Like, who's that? And right now I'm making an assumption. Maybe there are multiple people who have that exact name. Maybe it's a very popular name, Letexier, in France. But it appears that Raymond Letexier was the former senator in France, a senator in the Socialist Party who worked alongside Emmanuel Macron because he was at first, before he started his own party, En Marche, he was a member and a minister in the Socialist Party, remember? But again, that could be a coincidence. Maybe Ramonde Letexier helped him in a different way. We're not sure. I will go out to him with questions. But again, it was enough to keep me looking into the story. The documentary then becomes interesting because why did Hulu pick this up? It seems obscure. It seems irrelevant. There's nothing happening right now that people are going back and looking at this experiment. So not only does he get this book deal, but then there's a young woman who comes to him and says, hey, like I want to turn that into a documentary. And that person's name is Juliette Eisner. So I'm looking into Juliette, and she gave this interview and she says, I speak French, like I'm French. And I'm going, okay, what? This American girl is French. What's happening here? And I start looking into her. And curiously that she even did this, by the way, the Hulu documentary is just not good. And prior to that, the only time that she had directed a documentary was like 10 years ago. And it was called Lil Bub and Friends. And it was about cats on social media or whatever. Okay. So I learned, like, that's probably, she's probably connected somehow. I learned her mother is very French. She's from a very wealthy family in France. Her mother's surname is Courtial, spelled Courtial. And honestly, it could be another coincidence, but there's a guy named Edward Courtial who is the current senator of that same department, the OISE department that the Ramon Letexier woman was a senator in. So I'm like, okay. Edward Cortial, by the way, Skylar, you just want to triple check that picture to make sure that's the right guy. I hadn't seen the bottom of him. Okay, he's aged. Okay, different, looks a lot different from his Wikipedia. There we go. Wow, incredible. You can really just catfish anybody, right? Anyways, it was enough to make me go, okay, why is France suddenly interested in this experiment? Why is this girl, Juliette Eisner, suddenly interested? Like I said, her background is in Cats of Instagram. That was the last documentary that she had directed about famous cats. And it's like naked nepotism, right? I just clearly, like, you did this documentary and got this deal with Hulu because of who you know, not because of any talent that you have. And I get locked in. I'm reading through Letexier's book, and I notice something that I would describe as a very big lie by omission. Letexier is describing the prisoners in this experiment. You know, the idea is that this guy, Philip Zimbardo, just put an ad in the newspaper and said that he was looking for college-age students, undergrads, graduate students, whatever, to sign up for this experiment. And then he locks them a week later into a basement. And he determines that even after 48 hours, the prisoners are all crazy. And it shows that we are intrinsically evil, right? And people will do crazy things just because they're amongst a crowd of other people who are doing crazy things. Letexier describes the prisoners, the prisoners that were selected for this experiment, in a really weird way. Plus, the documentary also describes them in this way, like they're a bunch of middle-class college kid nobodies who signed up for this experiment that was funded by the Naval Research Center. Specifically, Letexier writes this, okay? He says, there's no need to multiply portraits to understand that the participants are not interchangeable, so they have nothing in common, right? And that the lives that intersect in Zimbardo's prison follow distinct trajectories. Each one has his sensitivity, his family, his past, his beliefs, his values, his studies, his certainties, his dreams, and his expected future. Some are shy and others are extroverted. Some are 18, others are 25. They have nothing in common, right? We don't need to look any further. I don't know. But for me personally, I felt like when he said there's no need to multiply portraits of the prisoners, I felt like I needed to multiply the portraits. I needed to look into the background of all of these prisoners. And what I discovered, again, was this lie by omission that was happening from the author. The prisoners, it turns out, he forgot to mention this, were all specifically linked to engineering. They were also very specifically linked to the military. And in most cases, oddly, they were linked to NASA. NASA plus engineering plus the military. And no, these were not just some random students that were floating through the wind and needed some money, okay? It's difficult for me to underscore how dishonest that narrative is, and I'm going to do it by showing you a part of this Hulu documentary, okay? One of the guards was a man named Chuck Burton. You're going to see him at the end of this clip. These are all of the participants, or a few of the participants, describing their background and why they signed up. Take a listen to this documentary before I reveal to you who Chuck Burton really is. Take a listen.
I saw an ad in the newspaper that they were doing a prison experiment and that they were paying $15 a day. Wasn't that bad for minimum wage type work.
It was $15 a day and 3 meals and a roof and a padded bed. And I thought, I've just arrived.
And that sounded good for me. I didn't have any money.
That sounds good to me. I didn't have any money, Chuck Burton said. Elsewhere, he describes how he was just backpacking, you know, just like a hitchhiker, and sometimes he would do some accounting. Do we have that clip of him speaking about his accounting, Skylar? Okay, well, he talks about, because we watched the documentary, about how, like, when he would run out of money as he was backpacking, he would then, you know, do a little bit of accounting to make some money, and then back to backpacking, you know, just your average guy who needed some cash. The truth, actually, is Chuck Burton is a descendant of the Rothschilds. Like, what? Are you kidding me? His father was Otto Herstatt of like Herstatt Bank. His mother was born in Germany, a descendant of the Rothschilds. And the reason why he's traveling all over is just as his mother expresses, that's what they did because they had orchards, an unbelievable amount of wealth, as you would expect and anticipate from the Rothschild descendants. I mean, like literally, Otto Herstatt owned Sears partially, like Sears, the company that was like so big. It is insane that this person is representing himself as somebody who was broke in college. But there's more. It's not just him. I want you to take a look at the spreadsheet that I put together. Again, I was interested in going, okay, once I saw the pattern emerging of engineering and NASA and the military affiliation, and I'm not talking like, oh, my dad served in the military during World War II. I am talking like the top of the military, okay? People that should have naturally been, if you were trying to make this a real experiment, the first thing that Letexier should have debunked was the idea that the results mattered because, well, if it's funded by the military and you pick a bunch of wealthy military kids, it probably, the results might be a bit tainted, is what I would say. There might not be any control in this experiment. You know, Doug Corpy, his father was Peter Korpa, who was the head of nuclear power and atomic energy at Bechtel, like the Bechtel Corp, the military corporation. His father was also a member of the National Society of Professional Engineers. Clay Ramsey, it turns out he was a Marine who was working on a merchant ship in particular, which we're trying to prod further because the Ramsey last name is very popular, but I will get to the bottom of it. There's Richard Yako. His father was Samuel Yako. Sam Yako was in the U.S. Navy, naval research, and worked for NASA. His father was a NASA engineer. Richard produced and directed commercials for NASA. Glenn Gee, the last name was way too popular, but we at least knew that he graduated from Stanford University with a degree in chemical engineering a year before this experiment. I would bet whoever his father is, he had some connection to NASA. Paul Baran worked for Halliburton. We're still confirming this, but it's likely that his father is also Paul Baran, who was the electrical engineer that worked for the Rand Corporation. Stuart Levin worked for Halliburton under the Energy Services and Standard Oil as a geophysicist. He also graduated from Stanford. We're trying to confirm, because Levin is a very popular last name, who exactly his father was. We have an idea. Jim Roney's father is Captain James Roney of the Moffett Naval Air Base. Could this be a conflict if the Navy is funding this experiment to have Captain James Roney of Moffett Naval Air Base's son participating in the results of this experiment? His father was also the commander of the ship that recovered the Apollo 8. Again, this weird NASA thing. His father was a naval aeronautical engineer who was the director of science and engineering at the Naval Academy. Conflict much? We're still working on this spreadsheet. Skylar, if you could scroll down here, we've got David Eshelman, because we had the guards here. David Eshelman, his father worked as an electrical technician in the Navy, and then his father went to go work for NASA. His father worked for NASA on all of the Apollo missions. He was a professor at Stanford during the time of the experiment, and he founded the Stanford Department of Radar Astronomy. He was also an engineer who oversaw radio experiments between the Stanford dish and the Pioneer 6 through 9 space probes. John Mark, we are still looking into, obviously a popular last name, but he worked for Kaiser Permanente and graduated from Stanford University, and his father was a professor at Stanford University. We also know that John Mark spent a year in France leading up to this experiment, so that's interesting. Karl von Orsdal, his father is William von Orsdal, who served in World War II as a Coast Guard in Okinawa and then worked for Lockheed. Like now it's Lockheed Martin, like Lockheed, for the rest of his career. And his father, of course, worked in the aerospace industry for Hughes Aircraft because, like I said, there was this strange NASA theme that's happening. I told you guys about Chuck. That is wild that he presented himself as broke. Completely crazy. We're still going through these guards. Craig Haney was in the Air Force. His father was Alan Haney, who was a Marine of the USS Iowa. He carried FDR to Algeria. We believe that was the mission that he was on. So what's happening here? What's happening here that we are hitting these themes in this experiment that French people are very interested in debunking at this moment? Nothing to see here, you guys. We've looked through everything. Here's what else. Ready? Curiously, the only prisoner whose identity has not been revealed is prisoner number 2093. That's the only prisoner who we don't know who that is. We have no idea what that person's name is. This person was given two different pseudonyms. First Tom Thompson, then Tom Williams. I need to know who that individual is. We can actually show you a clip of this individual, Skylar, from the Stanford archives that are available online. Take a look at this. It's super grainy.
416, since you got your hands in the air, why don't you play Frankenstein? This is correct. 293, you can be the bride of Frankenstein. You stand here. You come over there.
Should I act it out, Mr. Correctional Officer?
You should act it out. You be the bride of Frankenstein, and you be Frankenstein. I want you to walk over here like Frankenstein and say that you love 293.
That's how Frankenstein walks.
Walk like Frankenstein.
We ask you to walk like you.
I love you, 293.
Get up close. Get up close.
I love you, 293. I love you, 293.
You smile, 293. You get down here and do 10 push-ups. 2, 3.
Fake and gay. The entire experiment, I am telling you, the more that I've read about it, it is completely crazy that they were allowed to do this. And for whatever reason, they're holding on to this one prisoner, 2093. We can't tell you anything about him. We're citing privacy. But every other prisoner we can tell you all about. Just not 2093. I must know who this is. And you guys, I'm sorry to tell you this. It's not just the experiment that's fake and gay. So was the moon landing. You might not be ready for that. I'm sorry, you guys. It's all one big drama club performance, and there are reasons for these performances done at this magnitude. But when I think of drama, and I think of military, and I think of engineering, and I think of NASA, I know that I cannot rest until I figure out who this prisoner is. Maybe we find out it's not Jean-Michel Trogneau. Happy to find out it's not. But I think we know Brigitte was here in 1969. And yeah, it's just getting very, very interesting. And I am like a dog with a bone. I will not let this go. We cannot rest, people, until we get more answers. Okay, actually, we can take a brief rest right now so I can read some ads. But then after that, absolutely no resting. First and foremost, reminding you guys about Goldco. According to reports, Fed Chair Jerome Powell has just fueled hopes for a rate cut. And of course, the price of gold moved higher. Over the years, we've all seen some tough times. We've had skyrocketing inflation, surging national debt, market volatility, and never-ending wars. Gold is real, it's tangible, and it's held value for thousands of years. Unlike the stock market or currency, gold doesn't vanish when politicians make bad decisions, which, let's be honest, it's happening a lot these days. And that's exactly why I've been partnered with the award-winning company Goldco. They sell precious metals like gold and silver, and they do an amazing job with it. So whether you're worried about inflation, government spending, or just want peace of mind, Goldco can make it easy. Here's what you need to do. You need to visit CandiceLikesGold.com to get your free 2025 gold and silver kit and learn about how you can get up to 10% in free silver. Do not wait for the next crisis. Protect your future today. Call 855-815-GOLD or visit CandiceLikesGold.com. Again, that's CandiceLikesGold.com. Also reminding you guys about Dose, because mornings in my house are no joke. 4 kids, a million things to do, and somehow I still try to show up and do my best. That's why I like to start my day with Dose. Dose is a powerful all-in-one wellness shot that helps support gut health, immunity, energy, and all the stuff that really matters when you don't have time to slow down. And let's be honest, when you've got a big and busy family, slowing down is not really an option. It takes me literally 5 seconds in the morning, and I feel the difference all day long. Their bestseller is Dose for Your Liver, which was formulated to cleanse your liver of unwanted elements, aid digestion, and maintain your body's filter. Dose's clinical results showed lowering liver enzyme levels by 50% in most of their participants. 1 dose of Dose for Your Liver, it's equivalent to 17 shots of turmeric juice, Dose is gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, vegan. Stick with Dose, and you will feel incredible benefits over time. More energy, better digestion, reduced bloating, healthier living, enzyme function, reduction in brain fog, and better sleep. Right now, you will save 30% off on your first month subscription by going to dosedaily.co/Candace or by entering code Candace at checkout. That's dosedaily.co/Candace or by using code Candace for 30% off your first month subscription. Lastly, guys, I want to tell you about Paleo Valley because something that my team and I are always craving are beef sticks, specifically the ones from my friends at Paleo Valley. Paleo Valley makes their meat sticks with 100% grass-fed beef sourced from small-scale regenerative American farms so that you can feel good about what you're eating and what you're supporting. They've stripped out all of the junk. There's no preservatives. There is no gluten, soy. There's no sugar, dairy, or GMOs, just clean, nutrient-dense fuel. The way that food was actually meant to be. So whether you're road tripping, working late, or running around with the kids, these sticks deliver high protein energy without the crash. Whether you're keto, paleo, carnivore, it does not matter. Paleo Valley works with your lifestyle, not against it. They come in multiple bold flavors: original, jalapeno, summer sausage, maple bacon, and teriyaki. So there really is something for everyone. With over 55 million beef sticks sold, Paleo Valley is trusted, proven, and backed by a 60-day money-back guarantee. Right now, you'll get 20% off your first order by visiting paleovalley.com/Candace with code Candace. That's paleovalley.com/Candace, promo code Candace. All right, guys, here is where we are at right now. We need Cracker Barrel energy. Okay, that's the new term. That's the new move. Cracker Barrel energy worldwide. Email tips@CandaceOwens.com. You were at Stanford, you saw something, and by the way, there are some people who graduated Stanford that are telling me some things. I'm going to share them. But first, for my overseas audience that isn't really tracking what I mean when I say Cracker Barrel energy, I'll very quickly run you through what happened. Essentially, there is this restaurant chain. It's called Cracker Barrel. It has been around since 1969. It was actually started right here in the great state of Tennessee. I would say it was started in Lebanon, Tennessee. Savannah would pass away and tell me it's Lebanon, Tennessee. So there's room for debate there. But anyways, right here in the South of America. And recently, their corporate headquarters announced that they were going a little bit woke. They were going to ditch certain menu items that sounded, I guess, a little bit too Southern. And they were going to change the inside of the store, making everything super clinical looking. Plus, they were going to change the logo, okay? The logo here on the left is the Cracker Barrel logo that it was forever, since 1969. You can see there's an old man, and there is a barrel, and there is a cracker. On the right is what corporate said they were doing. Corporate said, we're going to get rid of all of that. There will be no human beings. And all I can tell you is the white people rioted. I was on Instagram cracking up, enjoying, applauding. They would not let it go. They said, oh, no, put that old man back, or we're not going to Cracker Barrel anymore, okay? And celebrities got involved. Brittany Aldean and Jason Aldean, the country singer, they were posted up on Instagram. I don't know if we have a photo of that. Brittany wrote, I love this girl, breakfast date this morning. We would be at Cracker Barrel, but y'all been acting a fool. She didn't play around. You know, she is from Alabama, and they were, like I said, they didn't care. The South said, we're not moving, we're done, okay? The result was that their sales took a complete hit, okay? I think they lost like $100 million. It was crazy in 1 week. Like $100 million just wiped from the market, and they gave in. Cracker Barrel said, okay, we messed up. We are going to return the logo. They wrote this on Instagram. We thank our guests for sharing your voices and your love for Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old timer will remain. At Cracker Barrel, it's always been and always will be about serving up delicious food, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let me tell you why this actually matters. This was not something that was obscure, and it is a part of a larger conversation that you will actually see me have tomorrow about what they are doing. It is a spiritual attack on the idea of ancestry. Nothing can be old. Everything must be new. They want everybody to look the same. There will be no personality in anything. They will turn us into AI bots. That is actually the explicit goal. You may not realize that. Actually, if you're watching this podcast, you probably do realize that. but they don't ever want you to think that you have ancestry. Even the way they're making homes, it's ugly. Everything is ugly, and there's a reason for that. They don't want you to think that structures have existed. They want you to think that you're just floating through the wind and nothing matters. Your family doesn't matter. Ancestry doesn't matter. Everything yesterday is gone. We are living in an ever present. And so it was actually important for people to stand up and say, you know what? It's been a year. Okay. It's actually been a year of some BS. We are not recovered at all, and we will not let go. The Jeffrey Epstein files, you're gaslighting us. We hate you, government. We're not stupid. We understand that you elites are creating this plantation of sameness. We understand that you're making our kids dumb intentionally. No one's we're getting rid of AP classes. There'll be no honors classes. No test scores. We're not even going to track how dumb we're making your kids anymore. We're aware. We are tuned into what you are doing and how much you hate us. And we want you to know we hate you back, okay? We hate you back. We are going to keep that same energy and tell you that you're not going to get our business and you're not going to wipe us away. And of course, there has always been this target. They want everyone to believe everything can be multicultural and you shouldn't think about it and you're backwards and you're racist if you want to see an old white man or something. And I genuinely was applauding that white people said no, and they made corporate bend the knee. And we all need to keep that energy when it comes. We need to stay focused, and we need to just say, we are not going to tolerate this. This is a no from all of us. We are aware that perverts are running the world. That's reality, okay? That is the reality. Perverts are running the world, and we're not going to let it go. I want to introduce you guys now appropriately to me not letting things go ever. Still obsessed with this Stanford experiment. Another interesting lead that came from a Stanford student. They said, hey, I don't know if you know this, but as a former Stanford student, I knew that we could access news archives to see what was published in like the Stanford newspaper at that time in the 70s. And again, this could be nothing, but I'm going to chase down and debunk everything. What they found in the archives was that there was a graduate student named Jean-Michel that was a member of the French Club, and also Bechtel, like the military institute. And I'm going to read you what they found in the Stanford archive. Again, this is from the 70s. You can see they're talking about Bastille Day festivities, and they mention Jean-Michel, a graduate school of business student from France, exhilarated the audience with popular folk tunes from Georges Brassens, one of the most celebrated French folk singers. Okay, so we have a Jean-Michel who is a graduate school student that is performing on the quad. And he also gets another mention in another Stanford Archive clip. I don't know if you have that. I mean, Stanford Archive newspaper. It says French Students Association, Bechtel International Center. Again, that is like the military corp, Bechtel. Jean-Michel will sing all the most successful songs of Georges Brassens. It sounds like Jean-Michel, this graduate student, was into a bit of theater. So I'm interested. I'm interested because we looked through the graduation logs. You know, you can see who graduated, and there is not a Jean-Michel that graduated from Stanford University that we could find. Maybe he dropped out. I don't know. But we have to put that out there in case you guys can find something that we cannot. Maybe you saw this Jean-Michel that was performing for Bastille Day on the quad. Maybe you were there and went, I do remember that Jean-Michel. Let me send you a link. Please email us. Please email us whatever you can find. tips@CandiceOwens.com. Tips@CandiceOwens.com, you guys. We are all going to figure this thing out. And Tim Dillon, the comedian, American comedian who has been unnecessarily featured in this lawsuit, realizes the importance of figuring this thing out. He realizes that we are all in this thing in a rather hilarious segment speaking about his honorable mention. Here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
The president of France's wife is suing Candace Owens, who said she was a man, and I'm mentioned in that lawsuit. And that's actually, because you start this business, you don't know where it's going to go. I didn't know where it was going to go when I started it. And that's what I'll tell people out there that are young. and are walking down an uncertain path to this moment in their life where they realize it's all actually been worth it. There's a lot of people that are going, am I on the right path? Are the sacrifices worth it? And the answer is yes, because I'm sitting before you today named in a lawsuit. The president of France's wife may or may not have a. We're all going to court to figure this out. We're going to court.
We're all
to figure
going.
out whether the president of France's wife has a. We don't know. We don't know. No one knows. And I mentioned in that lawsuit because I helped further the conversation. And that, to me, is something special. Is it a big movie? Who can't? No. But what? No. Who's doing that? What we're doing is advancing an important conversation on this earth. Does the president of France's wife have a or not?
I have to put Tim Dillon under oath, obviously. That has to happen. We have to do that for the culture. We have to ask him explicit questions about why he invited me onto his podcast, what he knows. Potentially, maybe he was working with Vladimir Putin. Of course, there could be a Russian angle there. Tim Dillon does look like he could maybe be friends with Vladimir Putin. I think that's objective. And it's going to get fun. And I'm actually so excited because I have the power of subpoena. Like, you know what that means? The reason that you can, hey, you don't get to say, for privacy reasons, we're not telling you who prisoner 2093 is. If there is something exculpatory here, you got to give it to me. I'm sorry, Stanford. I'm excited about figuring out who prisoner 2093 is. And we all know where this is going to lead, by the way. It's not just Tim Dillon. It's also Cardi B. Cardi B, the rapper, you may have seen this clip going around. It is hilarious. We don't even actually need the appropriate context, okay? Cardi B, the rapper, had to testify recently in a court case that was brought against her. And I'm listening to what she is saying as she is being questioned about certain things, and I realized that this could actually be me answering questions about how I got involved in the Brigitte Bacrode case. Let's roll the clip.
I don't think I was like on a high level of angry. I was more on a high level of concern. Very concerned.
Me too.
And why were you concerned?
Because I'm pregnant and this girl's about to beat my ass. Hello?
Hello.
Hello, I'm here. You said she's bigger than you, is that correct?
Absolutely.
How do you know that?
I mean, look.
I'm looking, I don't agree with that. What is your basis? Are you saying she's physically bigger, she's taller?
I mean, you have her medical records,
I
right?
don't have anything. I want to ask you the questions.
I mean, I was 130 pounds at that time.
So she's overweight, right? In your opinion.
Objection, relevant.
It's a little.
You don't need to answer that.
Okay.
Look, when they ask me how I got involved, I'm going to be like, look, I was pregnant. I would say a little bit concerned about this story of a 14-year-old and a 40-year-old teacher. And then when they say, how do you know she's a man? I'm going to be like, eyes here, obviously something's going on. Anyways, it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. Welcome to America. It's a culture you don't understand, okay? You only make us more interested. It's Cracker Barrel Energy. We are not letting this one go. We see you, perverts. I can't wait until next week so we start unpacking the new Becoming Brigitte series. We're finally ready to do that. Okay, let's take another break quickly here, and then I'm going to tell you guys where I have been and why I had to take some personal time. Foremost, when was the last time that you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets, forgave $10 million in veteran debt, and my wireless company also raised almost $500,000 to prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage that you get with Pure Talk. They are a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, it's secure, and you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data is just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to make that switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Owens and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Owens to make the switch today. Also, reminding you guys about 7 Weeks Coffee, because you already drink coffee. You might as well do a good thing. It's America's pro-life coffee company on a mission to fund the pro-life movement one cup of coffee at a time. And they just hit an amazing milestone. Over $1 million donated to the pro-life movement. Why are they called 7 Weeks Coffee? Because at 7 weeks, a baby is the size of a coffee bean. And it's also the same time a heartbeat is clearly detected on an ultrasound. That's why they donate 10% of every sale to support pregnancy care centers across all 50 states, providing life-saving ultrasounds, resources for moms in need, and real hope for families. And it all started with one simple idea: using your morning cup of coffee to stand for life. 7 Weeks Coffee is more than a great tasting coffee. It's mold-free, pesticide-free, it's shade-grown, low acid, and it's organically farmed, so it checks all the boxes. So you can go ahead and head to 7weekscoffee.com and you'll save 15% forever if you subscribe. Plus, you'll get a free gift. And exclusively for my listeners, if you use code Candace at checkout, you'll get an extra 10% off your first order. Total of 25% total savings there right on your first order, plus a free gift. Remember, your order will go directly to help support a network of over 1,000 pro-life organizations across the U.S. So visit 7weekscoffee.com with promo code Candace today. And reminding you guys about American financing, because if you've been living on credit cards just to cover groceries, gas, and bills, you know those interest rates are brutal. Why keep paying 20% or more to the banks when you could call my friends at American Financing? They have mortgage rates that are in the fives right now, and they're showing people every day how to keep more of their hard-earned money in their pocket and out of the hands of credit card companies. Right now, American Financing is helping homeowners save an average of $800 a month by using their home equity to wipe out high-interest debt. And there's no upfront fees. There's no obligation. It's just a 10-minute call to a salary-based mortgage consultant. And the kicker is that if you start today, you could delay 2 mortgage payments, putting even more cash in your hands right away. So do not wait. Call American Financing now. The number is 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210, or you can visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. That's americanfinancing.net/Owens. Okay, now where I was. I always want to be extremely honest with you guys about everything that is happening in my life, as much as I can tell you everything that's happening and my life. And there is kind of the broader point that, you know, you take your kids to school, back to school, you drop your kids off, and tons of moms are posting themselves and just how upset they are with doing it, that something feels wrong. That is very real the first time that you drop your kids off at school. And the Catholic school shooting that happened last week, again, we had another trans shooter. It really impacted me. It felt very close to home as obviously as a Catholic. Also in Tennessee, we had the trans shooting that happened in Nashville, which was just a few blocks away from me. And so it's starting to feel like it's getting close to home. And day in and day out, I am covering what's happening in, the dark parts of the world. We're talking about Epstein. We're talking about Emmanuel Macron, what happened to him. We're talking about the evil perverts in this world. And that kind of, I would say, earth-shattering moment where our government looked at us and tried to gaslight us about someone like Epstein, someone who admitted to the fact that he was sexually abusing minors. I mean, think about how crazy that is, that our government's just like, doesn't matter, keep it moving. It signals that the perverts are in control. And when you're reading this stuff day in and day out, like I do, and you understand how vicious, how violent, how intentional, how dishonest our government is, and you're not sure if everyone else has gotten there, it can be really overwhelming. I felt very overwhelmed with that shooting, and I just needed to sort of like take a second, pause, and feel like I was doing everything to guarantee that my kids were okay. And it was one of these stunning conversations where I was speaking to someone at the school. Like, I have always had the intention to homeschool, but there's all of these programs during the day for toddlers. And I was speaking to somebody at the school about safety protocols. And I had that moment happen where they kind of look at you like, what we're doing for safety is kind of not really your business. And these are kind of our kids. When you get that feeling from a school where you're just sort of like, wait, is this my kid or is this your kid? And I just don't want to give into that. I don't want to accept that the way that we are doing things is okay. It took radicals in government to sort of create this virtual plantation that we are on today. They were radicals. There's no question. And a lot of them were theater kids and protests and acting the part of things to give more power to the government. And you see that in terms of this shooter. I think I published something and I'm going, guys, like, look into MK Ultra. Every shooter is exactly like the last shooter. Okay, this is not about whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican. You just have to wake up and recognize that it is literally us versus them. Like their idea is to shrink the plantation for them to be for there to be less slaves. They will use movements like Gloria Steinem feminism, take birth control, go to work like men. And then you learn that that woman was a CIA plant and she was being funded by the CIA. They will use movements to get you to agree to do things that ultimately harm you in the end. And I don't blame people, by the way, who are new to understanding that, because I was there too. Like, we all went through the same public school system. We are all learning together just how evil the system is and just how, again, intentional that system has been made for us, this matrix that they have created. But I do think it's time for us to be equally as radical in saying, you know what? Everything the government has done has actually been unacceptable. None of this makes any sense. Why are you telling me that if I don't put my kids into school, I can go to prison, but also that, there's no answer for why kids are getting dumber and dumber and dumber since the establishment of the Department of Education, the federal education system? You read books like I read Thomas Sowell Inside the American Education System, and you will never unsee it, that it was really modeled by the Soviets, that we are going to essentially program your children, and we want your children to be overtly sexualized, and we want your children to also hate you. And so I had all of that kind of swimming inside of my mind, and I just kind of need to take a pause and feel that I was committing myself further in every aspect of my life to providing an example to people that we shouldn't accept the way things are. Like we should absolutely not accept the way that things are. And I also just wanted to make sure like my kids were okay, just really needing to think about, are my children okay? Am I doing everything that I can to make sure that they are secure? And I just need to take a pause, And on top of that, I got really sick. That's why you can kind of hear my voice. So it was kind of a timing where I felt spiritually sick about things that were happening in the world, but also I was physically sick. And I never want to come onto this platform and despair. I never want anybody to feel like we can't make a difference. We actually can. There was some amazing news out of Florida. I think they are considering wiping away all vaccine mandates for kids. And yeah, that's a win, but I want you to know that is a win because parents are saying no to vaccines. Like, parents are saying, why do you not also get to access my child's mind, but arbitrarily access my children's bodies because you're the government and we somehow signed up for that and that was made okay, and that doesn't make any sense. And what the government actually fears is what's happening right now, which is so many parents that are homeschooling and saying, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And we don't want to end up like Germany where you're not allowed to homeschool. I got an email from someone saying that in Germany, you are literally not allowed to homeschool, which means that prison is permanent in Germany. Like, they can just arrest you if you try to homeschool your children. So we have this short runway to make sure we don't end up that way, right? That we don't end up like Germany is without free speech. You can go to prison for questioning the World War II narrative. You also have to hand over your children and your children's bodies to the government and the state. We have to be the generation of radical parents that undoes everything that the government did, especially throughout the 60s. I think they really were spiking the ball in the 60s and the 70s. And part of that is just through true education and showing up and telling our kids what's real and what's not real, being hawks, not allowing them to gaslight us to think that we don't have the right to ask questions about our children or what they're learning or what safety measures are being employed when they hire people. How does a Jeffrey Epstein get into a private school with no background in teaching and being an overt pervert? Like, that's very scary to think about. And so, I just wanted to kind of take a pause and come back feeling a bit refreshed and optimistic, because we should be optimistic. We are seeing the results, sort of the fruits of our intellectual labor everywhere. And so, major win for parents, by the way, on the amount of parents that have taken their kids out of schools and are homeschooling them and realizing that that has always been what has made sense. Like, we are the parents. Okay, I'm going to get into some of your guys' comments. First, want to tell you that we are getting into the birth control industrial complex right now. It is available, the first episode, for free on CandaceOwens.com. I wanted you guys to see that because I think that will really help you understand how much your government hates you. They're just poisoning us. They're poisoning your kids. They've been poisoning us for a long time. And when I learned the history of birth control, I was quite stunned. And this is somebody, I was pro-choice. I was very pro-birth control, thinking people should take it. I kind of always felt weird that they were trying to sell it to me. But I definitely did not think there was anything wrong with other women taking it. And then I learned the history of birth control. And I went, oh, okay, that's just more of our government hating us and wanting to make sure that we don't procreate, and that they will eventually control that you will have to come to them and they'll control IVF clinics and things of that nature. We have to get educated ourselves, again, if we are going to reverse engineer things, so to speak. So that A Shot in the Dark episode 23 is available for free on CandaceOwens.com. Maybe next week we'll also publish it onto YouTube, because the facts are shocking. All right, let's see what you guys are thinking. Probably a lot that you're thinking. Don't forget anything. Find the Jean-Michel that was in the 70s in Stanford. We cannot find him on graduation docs. Anything that you may know. Maybe you saw this Jean-Michel performing on the quad. Tips at CandaceOwens.com. John Diamond, wow. Thank you so much for that donation. He writes, we missed you so much, but every time I thought about missing you, number one, I really want you to have time with your beloved family. Number two, girl is powering up for more war. Number three, everything is fake and gay, but God is in charge and Candace is on point. That is such a great summation. Yeah, you plug into your family and you realize what actually matters. And what matters at the end of the day is we need to be radical when it comes to defending our families, especially the children, especially the children. Marcy writes, welcome back, Candace. We missed you. Don't worry, you were not that late and gay to the stream. Thank you so much. I think we were only a couple of minutes late. I have also been dealing with this, like I said, this strange cold that's going around. I feel like illnesses also have transformed. Whatever, they just I now refer to it as our regular dosing of poison from the government. Weird symptoms we didn't have when we were kids, oh, I can't taste anything, or I feel like I'm on a plane for 6 days. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're just dropping the latest thing, sending out the latest mosquitoes type of a thing. Cheryl Wells writes, oh my God, I've been going through Candace withdrawals. I am so glad you're back. Me too. I am so glad that I am back. Tui writes, I'm watching live on the phone, the iPad, and the TV. Much support from Brisbane. In my eyes, you're a living legend. The Tongans of the Polynesia send their love. Please say hey. If you can, I am a fan. Okay, well, to the Tongans of Polynesia, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate the support all over the world. I saw also a clip of Tucker Carlson speaking about how he was walking in Norway, and one of my fans said, tell Candace that I love her. And so to whoever that fan was in Norway, I love you back. That is actually amazing that you went up to Tucker Carlson, you said that. It means so much to me. The support around the world is why we keep doing this thing. And you guys, when I was really feeling wow, I feel really upset about the fact that they've just been getting away with this for so long. I'm always so picked up, when I saw you guys posting, is Candace okay? We're going to send the police. My director was getting messages, my producer, Savannah. I can't tell you guys how much that just completely brightens me. And sometimes we all just need that. You need to remember that, there are such good people in the world. They are the minority. They know they are the minority, the evil people. The good people are the majority. That experiment obviously was a complete act to justify those sadistic perverts doing whatever they want to do around the world, the Stanford prison experiment. But the majority of people are actually intrinsically good. We're not intrinsically evil. And I know goodness wins in the end. Black writes, Candace, how dare you make us wait for more than a week in the dark? Now tell us sorry and that you love us. I'm glad to see you back. I am very sorry and I love you very much. To be clear, very much. Lou Castley writes, you were the most wanted woman these last 2 days. Thank God you're okay. We are so happy to have you back on. Yes, I'm okay. I am alive. Tomorrow, I think we're dropping a really important interview. I had months ago reached out to Milo Yiannopoulos. We had him on quickly because of things that were happening in the moment a few weeks ago. He was interesting to me because his writing was a part of my political awakening about conservatism and recognizing that I am at my core a conservative. And then he lived as a gay married man, and now he is very against homosexuality. And he was someone who has spoken about in the past having been molested when he was younger and was involved in a big scandal because he really said the wrong thing trying to justify what happened to him when he was a kid and, apologized for that. I wanted to speak to him about everything that's happening in this world. And one of the things that we were discussing was how we also got away from things like speaking about the trans stuff is easy, but there was also an intentional, I think, mythology that was established about homosexuality throughout the 90s that we kind of need to have that discussion again, like to speaking about homosexuality, speaking about Emmanuel Macron and Justin Trudeau and Zelensky, and why we have a society that almost insists on it, a society that kind of hates heteronormativity, as they term it, heteronormativity, or something that can also be described as natural order, men and women coming together to procreate, why there has been this rampant attack on that. They want everyone to be either LGBTQIA+, add initials, anything but the natural order. And it was a really interesting conversation, I think a difficult conversation for people to listen to that are just not accustomed to speaking about homosexuality on a deeper level. And I think you're really going to appreciate that conversation tomorrow. So definitely stay tuned for that. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. Like I said, it's a brave conversation, if anything else, because it's not something that people are like me. You grew up in the 90s, and now we're at a place, we used to call everything gay, and now you're at a place where like you can't even say the word gay in a way that sounds derogatory, like everything is fake and gay, or else it shows that you're a homophobe. That's intentional. That has been intentional. So we'll get to all of that. Anyways, let me see if we have any more people that have commented. Nope, I think that is it, you guys. Thank you so much. Tomorrow, we'll have Milo. Monday will be beginning of Becoming Brigitte Season 2. Today was really just kind of a preview for that. Send me everything about the Stanford experiment. Like, do not stop, okay? And also to my book club people, I'm so sorry. I was just not in a good place. And also I was just so sick. So we will have the book club on Tuesday. And I will see all of you guys then.
Up next, we have 0.563.
Up next from Chile, David Molina Bobadilla.
Starting off with our balance, holding at least 2 seconds.
Butterfly twist. Jump inside 540. Horse stance. Jump front slap kick, jump outside 360 horse stance. Aerial. Whoa, that was a cork to fall. We're definitely seeing a lot of different things here, Kyle. And a lot of these unique techniques that they're using are going to contribute to a higher B score. Do you want to talk about what these scores are? We have the A, B, and C scores that we keep seeing on the screen.
Yeah, so we have the A score, which are quality of movement. We have our B score, which is the overall performance, and our C score, which contributes to nandu, or degree of difficulty movements. All right, finishing at 1 minute and 30 seconds. Let's wait for this score. Final score, 9.216. And we do see a couple of deductions there.
Up next, we have Ho Yin Ching from Hong Kong, China.
醉拳，不外如是啫。嚟啊！我啲拳仲勁啊！水能載舟，亦能覆舟。而家乜水都救你唔到啊！嚟！啱好，命長。 Bro.